The term documentary style has gained a lot of popularity amongst wedding photographers over the past few years, and I figured now might be a good time to try to take a closer look at what that actually means. What's up? If you're new here, my name is Walter, and I am a commercial filmmaker and wedding photographer based in the southeastern United States. If you are curious about why you think I am qualified to talk about the topic of documentary style wedding photography, I've been a wedding photographer for about 10 years, and I have a college degree in journalism, so I am very passionate about authentic storytelling and taking really cool looking wedding photos. To start, with rare exceptions, wedding photography is inherently photojournalism or documentary. You're documenting whatever you want to call it, at least at some parts of the wedding day, right? You know, the ceremony, the first dance, stuff like that. Like, you're not setting any of that up. You are just documenting what is happening with your camera. Therefore, every wedding photographer has to have some kind of grasp on what documenting with a camera means and how to do it well. However, specifically, documentary style wedding photography does have its own look when compared to the majority of more traditional, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, more traditional wedding photography, which is more like kind of directed and set up. So let's talk about some of those key facets of documentary style wedding photography, why I choose to shoot in this way, and whether this style is right for you as a wedding photographer. But first, some numbers. If you're new here, and you are most definitely new here, I am documenting and reporting on year 2 of my commercial media production business. If you want more info on that, check out the first video I made explaining that. Okay, so this week, which was the week of February 10th through 14th, that was last week, I had 2 cold calls, 2 interest meetings, 1 pre-production meeting, 2 shoots, and 0 finalized projects. Pretty good week. I mentioned this in last week's video, but I'm totally fine with not having delivered like finalized projects in a certain week, as long as we're shooting and doing meetings and interfacing with these clients and everything. That's all that matters to me. So pretty good week. We have some very big things in store for this year. I think I'm going to hold off on announcing like the biggest one until next week's video, just to make sure everything is set in place. But if you are subscribed and you've been keeping up with the journey so far, I have something next week that is very cool, that we're very excited about. So stick around for next week's video if you want to hear about that. But in the meantime, let's go back to the main topic. Okay, so before I get into what I believe constitutes documentary style wedding photography, I want to emphasize that it is just that. That is just what I believe, okay? This is just my, albeit educated opinion. This is my opinion. It is educated, but it's still my opinion. And I'm open to being questioned on any of these points or being challenged on any of this. If you think I'm off or I'm wrong on any of these things, please let me know in the comments in a respectful way. I'm also still quite young. I'm always learning, and I don't want to be perceived as coming across as like a gatekeeper of the genre or gatekeeping anything photography related. But I have been doing this for about 10 years now. My style has definitely grown and evolved over that amount of time, and I just want to take some of the things that I've learned and how I do things now and pass them on to other people who are curious about that. Photography styles and genres, much like styles and genres of any kind of artistry, are always evolving and taking different shapes. So I don't intend for this to be an all-encompassing final take on what you have to do to be a documentary style wedding photographer, because 5-10 years from now it might look a little different. It might look a lot different. It might look no different at all. There's really no way to know. And of course, you're welcome to do whatever you want to do, as long as you are happy with the results of your photography and as long as your clients are happy with those results. If it's working for you, keep up the good work. Don't let this be like, don't take this video as me getting onto you saying you're doing it wrong. This is just the way I do it, and what I believe constitutes most of what makes documentary style photography. Okay, all of that out of the way. Let's go over what I believe is the first facet of documentary style wedding photography, and that is story over everything. Someone with this mindset is constantly looking for the best way to tell a story with their camera. And if they take a photo during this whatever photo session it is, wedding, whatever, that they believe does not help tell that story, that photo gets canned. That's what I do. If I take a photo, even if it's a pretty looking photo, if it's not adding to the overall story of what I'm trying to do, it does not get added into the gallery. It never sees the light of day beyond my own Lightroom catalog. This mindset requires you to be an amazing observer, which is something you can actually practice 24/7 with or without a camera. It's something I do all the time. Whether you're going through your daily commute to work, spending time with your friends or family, at the airport, whatever it is, wherever I am always trying to observe. And again, whether I have my camera or not, I'm always looking at lighting. I'm always looking at composition and framing of, if I were to take a photo of this thing in front of me, how would I do it? And then, of course, most importantly is, what is the moment? Who are the subjects? What are they doing? And what would I do to accurately and in the most compelling way tell this story in front of me? So, number one, story over everything, and be an amazing observer. Always be looking at everything around you, because a story can be told anywhere, and it's up to you as a photographer to visually tell that story. The second thing that I believe makes up a documentary style wedding photographer is the photographer who knows that they are not going to direct almost anything. This is probably one of the hardest things for wedding photographers to stop doing if they are now trying to be more documentary style. Me as an example, for many years, I tried to always be getting the most epic, amazing shots that I'm directing, I'm setting up, and I'm controlling all the lighting and everything like that. And then I started to realize that was not really telling authentic stories and capturing genuine moments. And so I started focusing on how can I tell this story? How can I use my camera to accurately portray what is going on in front of me without my own influence over it? And so I've heard it said that great moments in a wedding day don't just happen, and you have to influence them to do so. And I actually heard that from a wedding photographer that I really like. I think they're great, but I heavily disagree with that one sentiment. I do think you can influence good moments to happen. I just believe that the best photos from a wedding day are the ones that do just happen without our influence. And a great photographer is there to capture it. There is a lot of skill in posing and directing your subjects and their environments to get the exact photo you want. I'm not taking away from that skill or saying that is worse or less than, being more photojournalistic or documentary style. However, I do think it is somewhat harder for most photographers to just flow with things and be willing and ready to capture that flow without their own intervention. And so that is why I shoot documentary style. For me personally, I am actually not good at directing subjects on a wedding day. It just has always felt awkward and unnatural for me to try to do that. It's not a strength of mine. And so eventually I started to learn that I didn't have to. If I leaned more into this documentary style and telling my couples and their families and everybody, hey, just be yourselves, just do your thing, and feel free to be authentically you, and I will just capture that. And that is how I get my best photos. And so because I know I'm not good at directing, I emphasize to my couples that my style is very much fly on the wall, okay? So I choose to photograph most of the wedding day as if I was a guest or a family member who happens to have a camera with them. I let the day play out as it's meant to, not how I want it to. And so there is a lot of freedom in that, actually, in just saying, hey, I'm going to take all the stress off of myself and off of my couples too by telling myself and my couples, hey, don't feel like you have to do or be anything other than you, because it's your wedding day. I want you to just be yourself and enjoy it as it's meant to be enjoyed. So that makes it easier for me and for them, because they don't have to worry about posing in a certain way, being in a certain spot where the lighting is better, anything like that. They're just themselves. I am myself, and I capture that as it is. So the final note on that is any kind of shot that required you to direct it to happen wouldn't really fall under documentary style, with the exception of portraits, because portraits are a part of documentation, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But if you heavily directed or influenced something to happen, if you made somebody repeat a moment or pose for something that didn't actually happen, that's not really documentary style. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Just keep that in mind as you're deciding whether or not that this whole thing is a style that you want to pursue and to market yourself as such. My next note on what makes a good documentary style wedding photographer is don't be a silent weirdo. Documentary style doesn't necessarily mean that you just don't interact with your subjects at all. Having a good relationship with your couples and everyone at the wedding party is very important, actually, and will allow for everyone to be more comfortable with you and your camera. Because you have to remember, most of these people are not around somebody who is like shooting everything that's going on. Because remember, this is a huge day for your couples and their families and their friends, and you've been given the honor, privilege, and trust to capture such a thing. And so if you're a good time to be around and people trust you, they'll let go of some of those inhibitions and they'll be themselves. And that's where the good photos are. Now, you can't do any of that. You can't present yourself as that kind of person to these people if you don't talk to them at all, if you ignore everybody, and if somebody tries to interact with you in any way, you say, I'm just documenting, I'm just a photographer, I'm just a fly on the wall, like whatever. Don't do that, okay? That's weird, and nobody will want to be comfortable in front of your camera if you are that kind of person. My general rule is to get out of the way for real moments and still be a chill guy to be around. That might sound a little vague, and you know what? It might be a little vague because this is kind of something that you have to do a little bit of trial and error to figure out what works best for you and your personality. The main thing is just let yourself have fun and let everyone else have fun too. Because again, when everybody feels comfortable and you feel comfortable, that's how you get your best photos. And of course, you should get portraits as well. And if your couple is already very comfortable with you, they will be very ready and willing and able to take some great natural looking portraits. So how do I do portraits as a documentary style wedding photographer? The first thing I'm going to mention before we talk about these portraits is that it is a wedding, not a photo shoot. My couples often book with me because I emphasize that I view weddings as weddings and not photo shoots where I just get to expand my portfolio. I'm only interested in connecting with couples and telling their stories, and not what will look good on my Instagram, because anything beyond connecting with them and documenting their day well, anything that would look good on my portfolio or my Instagram or whatever, that's just extra. That just means I get to put it on my portfolio or my Instagram, but the main thing was that I connected with those people and helped tell their story in an authentic way. And if your mindset is anything other than that, and you want to be documentary style, this is the first thing you need to fix. You got to check yourself on this. And it's hard. Like, we want to build up great portfolios for ourselves because that's how we sell ourselves to future clients. People book with us because they see great photos on our Instagram or our website, but those great photos are only, to me at least, a side effect, a bonus on top, whatever you want to call it, of me authentically and genuinely telling these people's stories. You need to be able to focus only on your couple and documenting them authentically. And anything that distracts from this mindset will be a detriment to your work and a disservice to your couple. Focus on the people and the moments, not your own portfolio. Okay, so what does any of that have to do with portraits? I started that whole section by saying that this is how I do portraits, but I think talking about that mindset of it not being a photo shoot, of it just being a wedding, that is important to go into the section on portraits. So not every documentary style wedding photographer does portraits the way that I do on a wedding day, and that's okay. This is just what works for me. If you like it, use it. If you want to take parts of it and mix your own with it, go for it, whatever. It's your photography. I don't care. The main approach that I have to it is by emphasizing to my couple beforehand the whole idea of, hey, this is not a photo shoot. This is your wedding. I'm not interested in portfolio building. I'm not interested in what will look good on my Instagram grid. I am here to take great photos of you and your new spouse that allow you to look back on those photos at any time in your life and feel like you were there again and feel like you can connect with your spouse again just by looking at those photos. And so with that mindset, I tell them, hey, I don't want to pull you away from your friends and your family to go and do like an hour-long photo session in the woods or in this empty field over here. So maximum, we're going to take 10 to 15 minutes. And that's maximum over in this area with maybe some good lighting, and we'll get some good portraits of y'all just hanging out. And usually my only direction that I give my couples most of the time is just be with each other. just be with each other and be yourselves. And I will get one, maybe two good shots of the both of you looking right at the camera. I call that the mantle photo. That's what your grandmother wants to print out and hang on her wall, of the two of you looking at the camera. But all the rest of them, you know, I want y'all being with each other. Don't feel like you have to look at the camera. Don't feel like you have to be anything that you're not. Just be in love. You just got married. You're about to get married if you did a first look. And so just be in love. Just be with each other and be authentic and genuine. And you get great photos. And then after that, hey, 10 to 15 minutes, you're back at the party. You're back hanging out with everybody, helping them celebrate you having just gotten married. And so that's the way that I do it. Sometimes I have couples who want to do a little bit more than that, and that's totally fine because I'm there to serve them, and whatever they want, I'm happy to give them. But if they're looking for me for direction on what to do with those portraits, that's exactly what I tell them. I say, hey, we're going to take maybe 10 minutes to do this, and then we're gonna get a drink back in your hand. Okay, a quick note about color, because I don't think that color is like the biggest part of being a documentary style wedding photographer, and I'm not going to tell you that documentary style requires a very specific color style, as that is simply just not true. While there are different styles that doc photographers choose to edit in, the general sense is that the true to life look is what works best. An editing style that lends itself to a more timeless and classic look is what will serve your couples best if they're expecting a documentary style gallery. So trendy presets, overly unique color casts, and any kind of editing style that distracts from the moments captured are generally the incorrect way to approach doc style. And in my experience, most of the times when photographers go crazy on editing, whether that's with those crazy color casts or any other kind of weird stuff that you end up doing, it's because they're trying to distract from the fact that the moments they captured just aren't that compelling. That might be the most gatekeepy thing I say in this video. If it came across that way, I do apologize because I really didn't mean it to. If your color style works for you and your couples like it, again, keep up the good work, go for it. I actually do have a whole video where I talked about how color is not your whole style. If you want to check that out, I will link that in the little thing right here. But the last note on color is that, of course, you can never go wrong with a good black and white. It doesn't get any more classic or timeless than that. Okay, before we wrap this up, I want to shout out a few documentary style wedding photographers that I really like, that I have taken some inspiration from, or just every time I see theirs, you know, they post on Instagram, I get really excited because I just love their photos. So in no particular order, Kevin Mullins is one he's a UK based photographer. He is been on YouTube for a while. He's been doing this a lot longer than I have, and I take a lot of inspiration from the moments he likes to capture, and I've kept a lot of his little points of shooting and editing style in mind while I am shooting and editing. And so I would be remiss to not mention Kevin, because I think he's really, really good, and you should go check out his YouTube channel while you're here. The next one is Daniel Kim, pretty well known wedding photographer in the US at this point, but he has just such an authentic, genuine approach to wedding photography that really makes me know that he loves what he does. He loves wedding photography. He loves weddings. He loves photography. He loves people. He loves all of that, and it is highly reflected in his work. If you don't follow him on Instagram, I would highly recommend you to do so, because just looking at his photos will inspire you and make you want to be a better photographer. The next one is actually a friend of mine I know in real life. Her name is Madeline Beck. I call her Maddie. I used to second shoot with her a good bit. I've probably put some of the photos I've taken while I was second shooting for her in this video. She is a phenomenal photographer based in Chicago. I learn a lot from her every time I shoot with her, and I just think she's super talented. And then another one is Simon Dewey. I think he's a little lesser known. I came across him on Instagram, maybe YouTube. I don't know. I can't remember how I found him, but another UK-based photographer with a very authentic, natural documentary style. Follow Simon Dewey on Instagram. Check out his website. I think he does some great work as well. Another one is Kaylee from Kansas. She's pretty well known. She's got a decent Instagram following. I've been following her for a while. She tends to do, at least I see on her Instagram, more like portraits and weddings, and sorry, not weddings, but portraits and families and stuff like that. And I absolutely love her work. I think she has an amazing style. I think she does a lot of film as well. Not that super matters, but figured I'd mention it. I just love her colors and the moments that she captures. It comes across as very genuine. And in that same line, the last photographer I'll shout out is a lesser known one. I can't remember how I found her, but we have a few mutual followers on Instagram. Her name is Anna Graves. I believe she's based in Texas. She just has a really soft, aesthetic and style that I really like. And she also does a lot of families and stuff like that, and just has a very genuine approach that inspires me every time I see one of her photos. Okay, let's wrap this video up. It's been going on a little too long. So, is documentary style photography right for you? After hearing all of this, how do you feel about documentary style wedding photography? Do you value absolute authenticity and you hate directing like I do? Well, then this would be right up your alley. I can't tell you the number of times I've talked to other people who are also photographers or videographers, and they don't do weddings, they do commercial or whatever else. And I say that I do weddings, and they'll say, oh, I think weddings are great. I just can't, like, I hate directing and I hate editing out people in the background and blah, blah, blah. And I always tell them the same thing, which is, hey, you don't have to do that, right? You can do it the way that you want to do it. And the people who connect with that will book you for it. So, if you don't like directing and you think, oh, I can't do weddings because of that, hey, yes, you can. Just make sure that that's up front with your couples and that is reflected in your work as well. That being said, if you love directing and sculpting your images exactly the way you want every time, then you might just want to keep on what you're doing. Maybe you watched this video because you were just curious about what I do. Maybe you subscribed and you just wanted to, see what my thoughts were on this. But if you have a very directorial style and you want to keep doing that because it works, hey, go right on ahead. I think that's great. It's just not my style, but there are a lot of couples out there who want that from you, so keep doing it. You could always mix in some documentary style into your shooting. There are plenty of photographers who have a mixed style of like editorial and documentary, and it can be really cool. One little quick shout out, check out my friend Katie Ruther, California, LA based specifically photographer, who I think has a great mix of editorial and documentary style. I think she's great. And that's it. That's all I got to say about this. If you want to keep the conversation going, if you want to yell at me about how you think I'm wrong about any of this, please feel free to go in the comments and let me know. Otherwise, feel free to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. If you don't subscribe, that's totally fine, because I will see you in the algorithm in 6 months.